Okay. So h'tשכ. So he said, he answered the question of the Maila of Dafke Tefillah B'tzibur, and he said that the Maila of Tefillah B'tzibur is the Maila of, it has the Maila of Dirsh Hashem B'motzei K'ro B'yosei Karev. Which is referring to Aseres and B'tshuva, seek Hashem when he's found and when he's near, referring to Aseres and B'tshuva, which is all part of the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, obviously, revelation and connection. And what is that time? That's the time of Bakshu Ponei, Dafka the Pnimius of Elikus, and Dafka coming from the Pnimius of the Neshama. And that's what Tefillah B'tzibur expresses. And that is culminating the whole discussion that the Avodah is not, there's two stages to Avodah, two stages to Merkava. The Merkava as expressed, both of them, the point of the Merkava is to lift the Adam to a level of Loi Adam. And there's two levels. There's the first level as embodied by the natural Merkava itself, and that is an integration of the Midas, elevating them because they are influenced and affected by Moishe, hence a softening of the Midas. And there's a bittul that's brought, the Loi Adam, the Ma as in bittul, to Mitzias, to Adam, Ma as in something, the Midas. But that's not the ultimate Avodah. The ultimate Avodah is even a high madrega of Loi Adam. The first level of Loi Adam is Atzilus. The higher level is really beyond Atzilus, already tapping into Toyo itself, where the Midas there are there in full intensity, rooted in Etzem HaNefesh. And there the Chiddush is that we're not tempering the Midas, we're not softening them, we're not compromising them for an overarching agenda, but rather each Midah in its full intensity, and nonetheless, it's Betachlis HaBittul. Why is it Betachlis HaBittul? Because the Midas are connected overtly and consciously with the Etzem HaNefesh. And it's all the shleimus of the Etzem HaNefesh. Hence, every Midah is nothing other than the shleimus of the Nefesh. So the opposite Midah is also equally the shleimus of the Nefesh. And therefore, no Midah is complete at all without the other one. And each Midah can be expressed and Dafka in its full toikef. And of course, we gave the analogy for that in our previous discussions, right? So now we'll continue now h'tשכ. So v'zeh gam klolos in the Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi. This is Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi. Yine yesh p'diyas dam, yesh p'diyah B'Shalom. There is ordinary redemption and there's a peaceful redemption. B'Shalom. V'inyonim ba'avodah the p'diyas dam b'beifin shal milchama. So p'diyas dam, that's the first level we're describing, is in milchama. It's a big, it's a battle to tame the midas. Mikrovli, that's the battle that surrounds me. Bringing shas leis to shas krov, and that's the avodah of davening, that the nefesh habama should be tamed, and the midas should be tamed and understood that there's something higher and greater, and channeled to this higher objective. And all this abundance in the likus, even nefesh habama should understand that what it's looking for is really is a likus in the world. And that's the beginning of Avodah. It has to be explained. Seichel and Midas, Pnimi means that as they're integrated, not in their Shorish and Etzem HaNefesh, where they are, as it were, independent in the sense that each one is just Bechir of the Nefesh. Here we're talking about Keichas Pnimi means conscious, integrated faculties of the human being. So there's the avodah to make it all harmonious. That's a tremendous avodah. To be harmonious, mature adult. Achadayin in the tachlis avodah, but that's still not the tachlis. It's a raptor, yeah. Since this is a battle, base carving. So battle means that there are two sides. There's the one that battles, and the one that's being battled with. So it's a war between Seichel and Midas. In the end, we know we have the upper hand. Seichel does if we'll only engage it, and if we can only summon the proper convictions, which is what Tanya guides us to be able to come to the intellectual conviction. Then no matter what's going on in the heart, it will naturally surrender. Naturally, because Seichel is naturally superior, but that's a milchama. Right? If a person really understands how smoking is killing him, he sees it clearly, the X-ray, and he sees that another cigarette blackens, he's going to die. So even though he still wants to and loves smoking, he won't, because his conviction will hold sway. This is he understands. But still milchama. It's a milchama. Levi, take a picture of Jason in the picture too. Let me sit down. What's that? So you can look like you're. Morning, Jason. You made this effort to come. You should be in the picture. Mitzad zeh, third lines from the bottom. So this is, we recall that the definition of loy adam is kilei adam hu lihinochem. Loy adam is the level of absoluteness and not subject to change, which means not subject to be affected by anything outside. That's what causes change. So this is not a milchama, because it's a milchama. So there's ups and downs. One day we're in more control, next day in less control. And I feel like it's in a constant battle. You're learning in Tanya. It's not a knockout. That's the tzaddik. It's the constant pinning down it's like a wrestling match, where you're constantly pinning down the Nefesh Bahamis, but any second you can cast off the yoke. And I feel like Hashem, the yoke of the seichel, of the conviction, even. I feel like Hashem, even if right now he won the round, it could be the next round, the other side is aroused and awakened and fights back. And as the pasuk says, referring to Yaakov and Esav in the womb, that they are forever locked in a battle. That's mitzad the avodah of what the starting avodah, the avodah of Meichesh Shadalev, the avodah of the Beinani at the initial lifelong avodah. That's the foundation. It's not the tachlis. Then there's the tachlis avodah. The fact that the Rebbe is telling us means that it's shaykh in some way, somehow, in some measure. And what is that? Shapdi B'Shalom. It's not a battle, because if he's in touch with the etzem nefesh, then there's no mitzias. Everything is simply felt and experienced as the etzem nefesh or an elikus. Everything is simply Hashem's desire. Everything is. Nothing has any independent reality or value, so where there's no struggle. This is what they used to want. So it's this, it's that, this minute, this place, that place. Not only is the p'tiyah in a peaceful one, but as he says, for the many who were with me, one of the meanings is, this says the Gemara, Kepirish Chazal, the Yerushalmi, that many are even his enemies. Shagam Anshe Avshalom, who led a rebellion, in the end, even Avshalom's people, they prayed that David the Melech should be victorious. So that's how peaceful, how essential the Gilui is, that even that which overtly opposes in the face of Gilui or Etzem, they too melt. It's a famous story that the Rebbe told the first Yud Beis Tammuz after the Nesius. You can hear it on the tape. It's quite extraordinary. So the Rebbe tells a story that the Friedrich Rebbe related that in prison. So in prison, he went on a hunger strike to get his talis and film, and which were given to him subsequently. And he used to daven Shabbos barichus. So it was on the first Shabbos of his arrest that they came to tell him that he has to follow them to take a photograph. So when they came in to the cell, he was davening with his talis over his head. They walked in, they walked out, not to disturb him. They came back a second time. They said an hour and a half later, he's still with his talis over his head. So they quietly just exited the cell. They came back a third time. This time already, his talis was on his shoulder, not on his head. He had, towards the conclusion of davening, they informed him for the reason they came, and he said, today is Shabbos, and there's no photograph on Shabbos. So they left. So the Rebbe says the entire episode is beyond belief. The whole reason he's arrested is because he's a Rebbe, and he davens with the talis, metaphorically, they're symbolically and inspiring other Jews. That's why he's in prison. And they come and see that he's davening, so, excuse me, as if to say, excuse us, we'll come back later. And on the third time, so he said then, because when they confront pure bittul to the etzem and the neshama, there was this moment of it when it was clear to them what they're confronting. Then even his arch enemy, the objective was to have him in front of the firing squad, just melts and we'll come back later. And the end, okay, not on Shabbos. Of course, that didn't define the entire experience. We're in Golus, but here's a moment, in Golus, we're facing, in the words that Rebbe said, that's Musay, the essence of a Yid bound up with the essence of Hashem. That's what they saw. So nothing in God's world can oppose that, because God's essence is in everything, and is the essence of everything. Continuing, you might want to close the door, please. I'm sorry. Shkoyach. So even the opposite of Kedusha also is affected. I'm not just talking about, as he said before, the midas of the nefesh alikis. There's many layers to this, namely to the being in touch with etzem nefesh. And one of them is this, ultimately, that even the opposing forces, the lumazeh, become illuminated, transformed. Shezeh tachlis sabiru, that's the whole objective, is even the lumazeh, the opposite of Kedusha. Achi yil asid love, culminating as it will be on Mashiach comes, that the spirit of impurity, says Hashem, I'll remove from the world. There's nothing left of the opposition. There's no resistance. And the world is in a peaceful and tranquil state, expressive of the one God in everything. And this all happens through davening dafka with the tzibur. And again, we're suggesting that the mile of the tzibur, again, is the connection with the other in the fullest and deepest way, that everything, the other fellow, is integral to me and all of us, expressive of Hashem. It's similar to what is revealed on Aseret Meshuvah, the Yichidah Shebenefesh, and that reveals the Pnimius. So it's the tefillah b'tzibur v'gam, and also al yedei kol ha'avodah, the general avodah. Gimel amudim of the three pillars shaleim ba'olam oimid, upon which the world stands. Shingin achut ha'mashulish b'mehera yenotek. The pasuk says that a three kehelas Ecclesiastes, a threefold thread will not be quickly be torn. The Gashmis, if you take a thread that's made of a rope, it's made of three threads intertwined, it's extremely strong and very difficult to break. So it's in of chazaka. So here the three things of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasodim create this permanence, and it can't be broken, meaning the Mailim is Shinuyim, beyond change. This is the Loy Adam. Kidiyasa b'medrash, there's a medrash that the three threads are the others. So the third one that completes it is Yaakov. Shekoy al Yaakov, he embodies Avram and Yitzchak, so he is the rope of the three threads. Pchirish ba'avos, he's the choice one of the forefathers. Shezeh klolos in Yitzvidas HaTiferes, which of course is Tiferes. She'oilad Pnimius HaKesed, that Tiferes, unlike Chesed and Gevura, is rooted in Pnimius HaKesed, Davka, because it embraces opposites. Sheshosh b'Pnimius v'Atzmos Eritzof, and Pnimius HaKesed is rooted in Pnimius of Atzmos, and hence there can be this Tiferes, this fusion of Chesed and Gevura. Mishom Nimshach Ad Lamata Mata, and from there it's drawn all the way down from Atzmos and Mahus. Shegam b'Mahus Lamata, that even entities here, existences down here, Yesh, Mitzias, Yayin Shalamaylim Mahus, that they become at once non-existent in the sense that their existence only expresses His truth. Nimna Nimnois, hidden from the hidden, that something can be and not be simultaneously. In the sense that it is, creation is, doesn't disappear, but its isness is not itself. Its isness is the truth of Him. It is nothing, and it's in its nothingness, that's its truth. Again, the beautiful mashal in the halacha of the neder that becomes nullified when the neder is articulated. Concluding the the famous letter of the Rebbe Rashab that's quoted in the beginning of Hayom Yom, introduction to Hayom Yom. He writes, this is Kislev Maimer, Shoshana of Chassidus. He writes there, Shin Yonahu, what's it is Kislev, the Hamship Bechinas Oimek, to draw down the depth, Upnimius Toides Hashem, or mitzvahs Hashem, and the inner dimension of Hashem's Torah and His mitzvahs, Bechinas Pnimius Va'atzmas Oirin Sof, from the very inner essence of Alikus, Sheyor, that irradiate, illuminate, the Pnimius Nafshenu, the inner core of our souls. End of quote. This is the higher avodah of the Merkava, the avodah of the desire of the heart. The Pnimius Alev, where the midas are there, b'chol takfam, and with all of the intensity, and dafka there in absolute bittul, not simply tempered by seichel, which is the first avodah. The Podoh B'Shalom. And through this, as he said, as he's continuing the three kavim, the three pillars of Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasodim, it's interesting, it occurs to me that Torah, to some degree, you need somebody else. You need a teacher, or you are a teacher. Gemilas Chasodim is obviously also, you're connecting, you're giving to somebody else. The Chiddush is that even Tefillah, which is a personal communication with Hashem, it has to be b'tzibur. It's got to be with the conscious, deep sense that I don't stand alone. It's not simply me and my needs, but you stand there with this conscious, collective connection to Klal Yisrael. And if that's how you feel when you daven, where does this come from? That's because of the etzem hanefesh, you are connected to every other yid. So there's the chiddush that davening doesn't have to be that way. It can be, and on one level, it is a very personal conversation with Hashem. But the deeper level of davening, it's a collective conversation. All Yidden are speaking. Follow? So in Torah and Milas Chasodim, it's kind of built into it. You got to be taught Torah. Milas Chasodim, you're giving somebody. Even Tefillah, this personal moment, it's B'tzibur. So this affects the redemption of each individual. And that leads to the ultimate redemption by Mashiach, who is described as the man unto whom peace is his. All of Nemar about him, the prophet says that Mashiach will come, there'll be the marba hamishra, the increase in mishra, means in governance and in Hashem's governance in the world. Will the shalom and ketz and unlimited peace. The word marba is spelled with a mem, a final mem, in the middle of the word. There's two places in all the scripts that appears. Next, this explains the closed mem represents the perfect enclosed world, the fourth direction of the Ruach Tzveit Hashem, the fourth direction of the world that Hashem created, open-ended, and our avoid is to close it and make the world a unified, intimate place. It's explained at length in the Chassidus, based on the Gemara. What it means begashmi is, I don't know that the fourth direction is open, but whatever it means. I think in the article they have some explanation on that Gemara. Anyway, Shazam Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Shalom, he's saying that the point is peace. That's what Mashiach's inyan is. Sheyava v'yigaleinu b'agala didan. He'll come and redeem us in our time. Okay, so let's give a general overview. Yeah, do it together. We'll do it today and tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. Yes, all right, so we'll start the new Maimer Hashem on Monday. All right, so he starts off, the Maimer begins with Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi Mikravli Kivrabem Hayimodi. So the pasuk is really referring to three things, as explained in the Gemara. Hashem says that all those occupied themselves with Torah, Gemilas Chasodim, acts of kindness, and Daven with the Minyan, the Tzibur, I view it as if you redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world. And Rashi explained how all the three things are indicated in the pasuk. Right? That's obvious. Torah is called peace, so that's Podoh B'Shalom. Gemilas Chasodim obviously promotes peace. And Barabim Hayimodi, the many, that's davening b'tzibur. Then the Marsha adds that this, of course, is the three amudim, the three pillars of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasodim. Because Avodah, which means Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, in its literal sense, is now replaced by Tefillah. The question of the Maimed is, fine, Tefillah, but why Dafka? It's clear that it's not just Tefillah that causes this Podoh B'Shalom. At the end of the Maimed, we have the answer. There can be a P'diyah without Tefillah B'Tzibur, the personal lower level of Merkava. But Podoh B'Shalom is Dafka when it's B'Tzibur, meaning drawing on the Etzem HaNefesh. So that's the end of the answer to the question why it has to be Dafka B'Tzibur. But in order to understand this, is Beis. So what did he say? That the three amudim are the three avos. Avram is Gemilas Chasodim, and Yitzchak is digging the wells. That's Malamata Lamaila. That's Tefillah. And Yaakov is, and he's a Korban Yitzchak, and Yaakov is Torah, bringing the various verses. Good. So this is important because he just said that the avos, again, in retrospect, looking at the end of the Maimer, the avos are these three pillars, and then here comes the heart of the Maimer, and the avos are the Merkava. So the end is going to be how they are the Merkava higher than the natural Merkava of the Maila, and that Merkava is manifested in these three avodas. When the avodah of Torah, avodah, and Gemilas Chasodim is done, drawing on etzem nefesh, so that's the ultimate merkava. That's how the things flow here. So the question is, what do you mean the obvious of the merkava? That's their praise. The merkava is a wonderful thing, a vehicle, a chariot, but the chariot and the rider are still two separate things. So why are we praising the others as being the merkava? So therefore becomes the whole beer what the merkava is and the two levels that emerge. So so the question is, as beautiful as the avodah of the malachim is, but still a malach is some separate entity. It's not tachlis habitul. It's a likus concealed in a very real way. Only when he's a shliach, then he's called b'shem Hashem. If he's not, and that's why the malach says kodesh, kodesh, kodesh. What's kodesh? God's removed from me, holy. He's declaring his own distance. And then he says that the malachim can even be found wanting. I told you the story there of Matat, the whole story of how Acher became, Elisha ben Avu became an apostate because he saw Matat sitting Lamaila. And as a result of that, he misinterpreted what it meant, that there's two heavenly domains. If he can sit in the presence of God, it means that he's independent. And that was what led to his apostasy. But then the Gemara says that Matat was censured and cast out of Gan Eden. And he was given 60 lashes with a stick of fire. So, and likewise, that in Rosh Hashanah we say that the malachim are filled with dread, gripped with dread, which means that they're not b'tachlis habitul. So, that's why they're merkava. And merkava is the perfect metaphor, a vehicle. A vehicle is a reflection of the will of the rider, but it's not the extension of the rider, it's something else. So malach is a holy, actually, you're reminding me of Shabbos. I'm not going to say it now. But what I wanted to say from Rabbi Shmuel Levittin, that can't be said at a shir, but if I bring it, it could be said. So I'm going to remind you, it's about malachim. It's about the maila of the malachim, that notwithstanding the tremendous praise of Hashem and their bittul, it's still not the tachlis, there's a degree of separation. So, okay, if you remember, you're reminded. Now we have a cue to remember. So the question is, why are we calling the Ovis a Merkava, where surely the avodah of the Ovis is a much higher avodah? So much so, he brings from the Sefer Rabbi, that early Kabbalah Sefer, that Chesed Atzilus declares that Avraham is doing my avodah, and the bittul of Atzilus is hiding the bittul of the Malachim, which their station is in Bria. Yitzchak's avodah of Gvura of Atzilus. So Atzilus is the Merkava, a vehicle to Likus. It's the expression of Likus, the world of Achdus and unity. He and his causations are one. He and his light is one. That's Atzilus. So what's the avodah that the Avos are Merkava, which means somehow the Avos are lifting to a higher place? No, the question is calling the Avos the Merkava and then drawing the association with the classic Merkava of the Malachim. They are high on a higher plane altogether. So then begins, which will be tomorrow, begins the whole thing. What's the point of the Merkava? It's to lift the Adam to Loy Adam. And here we get the two levels of Loy Adam, which in summary are what? The lower level of Loy Adam is the effect of Meichin on Midas. That's the effect of the first relative level of Loy Adam. A person basically is an emotional being. So to tame the emotions, he's got to connect to the Loy Adam, which in general means the effect of Meichin Shalat Alalev. That's the first level. The higher level of Loy Adam is the Midas B'Tokvam. It's not an Aved of Seichel, it's Rusa de Liebe, it's complete bittul. And there you can have these opposites of the midas betag from it's the bittul to be explained as we go further in our chazar, in our review.